In the past, the world was a peaceful place, full of life and vibrant landscapes. A young sheepherder peacefully tended to her flock in the grassy fields. But that peace was suddenly shattered as an ominous crack appeared in the sky, catching the sheepherder's attention. The sheepherder looked up, her eyes wide with shock and terror at the horrifying sight. A great, malevolent red eye stared down from the fractured sky as the world was invaded by the Demon King and his countless monsters. The only ones who stood against this overwhelming threat were the divine knights who served God. By making a vow to God, they were granted supernatural power and managed to drive the monsters back. However, the war left behind a terrible curse. Demon miasma, a corrupting substance from the demon realm, lingered in high concentrations in some areas. Most of those who were unfortunate enough to be corrupted by this miasma died. And as for the rest, they were consumed by grotesque plant-like entities that sprouted from the corrupted land. The entities painfully absorbed the life force of their victims, creating strange crystals in the process. Through this horrifying process, the remaining humans were twisted and transformed, becoming demons themselves. These new demons, devoid of their former humanity, immediately turned on their own kind. The severed head of a corrupted villager falls to the ground with a thud. A divine knight with light purple hair arrives at the scene of the massacre, grimly stating that they were too late. He is Kiran, the vice-commander of the Divine Knight's 9th branch. He looks out over the field, littered with the bodies of the slain villagers. Suddenly, one of his subordinates calls out in alarm, pointing to the sky. A red moon has appeared, and it's here. The blood-red moon fills the sky, an ominous sign that a powerful demon is about to emerge. A sudden sound catches Kiran's attention, his eyes sharp and alert. While one of his men anxiously suggests they return to headquarters, Kiran identifies that the sound is coming from a nearby building, telling his men to be cautious as the red moonlight pours in. Inside the dilapidated building, a small hand reaches out towards the strange, glowing red crystals floating in the air. Kiran's eyes widen in utter disbelief at what he sees inside. For amidst the rubble and the ominous red glow, he finds not a demon, but a human baby Laika, crawling on the floor. A child who would grow up under the care of the very knights who found him. 15 years later, at a grand facility resembling a castle, the children are reminded that the peace they enjoy is all thanks to the divine knights. In the bustling orphanage cafeteria, the children are told to eat with gratitude in their hearts. However, as a young boy with white hair receives his meal, another boy with spiky brown hair calls out to him. The boy Laika looks at his tray in frustration, wondering why his portion of food is so small. Orphan Bully A, a larger, intimidating boy, scowls and questions what Laika just said. Startled, Laika quickly backs down, muttering that it was nothing. As he walks away, he can hear the other orphans snickering at him from their table. Laika sits alone, isolated from the others who laugh and talk amongst themselves. He introduces himself internally. His name is Laika. He recalls his past. When he was a baby, the village he lived in was attacked by a demon. He was the only one who survived and was taken in by the divine knights to be raised in this facility. Because he was the sole survivor, everyone thinks it strange. They also claim the large birthmark on his face is proof that he is a monster. In other words, Orphan Bully A slams his meager bowl of food down in front of him, sneering that this is enough food for a monster. Laika realizes he is suspected of being a monster. He understands the source of their animosity. All the children in the facility had their families killed by demons, so their hatred for a suspected monster is immense. Orphan Bully A calls a younger boy over, noting that the kid had just arrived the day before yesterday. He explains that the new kid's parents were just eaten by a monster that had been disguised as a human. The bully then turns to Laika, venomously accusing him. "Your kind did it, didn't they?" Surrounded by the other orphans, the bully grabs the grieving boy and demands that Laika apologize. Laika tries to protest, insisting that he's human, but the little boy, consumed by grief, begins to cry. The grieving boy screams at Laika, demanding his mom back and calling him a monster, leaving Laika stunned and speechless. Enraged, Orphan Bully A slams Laika to the floor, once again demanding that he apologize. The bully looms over him, repeating his demand for an apology with a furious expression. Pinned to the ground, humiliated and powerless, Laika looks up with defeated eyes. Watched by all the other orphans, Laika is forced to apologize for a crime he didn't commit, his spirit crushed under the weight of their hatred. Later, while cleaning the cafeteria alone, he reflects on his life. This same miserable routine has gone on for over a decade, a seemingly endless cycle he is desperate to break. In principle, orphans can't leave the facility until they become adults. However, there is one exception. In the year an orphan turns 15, a priest from the Divine Knights is dispatched to conduct a selection test, giving them a single chance to join the Knights and leave the facility. Leica counts down the days, his hope and desperation growing. Only 5 more days until the selection test. He grits his teeth, his eyes glowing with determination. He can't stand this place anymore and vows that he will definitely get out of there. His one and only goal is to become a Divine Knight. 5 days later, the selection ceremony begins in a grand church, light streaming through the stained glass windows. The orphans who have turned 15 and wish to make a vow as a knight are called to assemble. As the candidates, including Leica and Orphan Bully A, line up and step forward, the ceremony is set to begin. Orphan Bully A turns to Leica and whispers menacingly that a monster like him can never become a knight. The priest holds up a sacred chalice, explaining the rules. Those whose liquid turns blue cannot become knights. However, if the liquid shines gold, they can gain the power of a knight by drinking it. To make a vow, they must offer up what is most important to them to God. Leica and the other orphans listen intently, knowing this life-changing ceremony can only be performed once. The priest gives a final, stern warning for the candidates to be cautious with their vows. Orphan Bully A is the first to step forward, shouting his vow for all to hear. He vows that he will never run away when faced with a monster again, his voice filled with conviction. He reveals the source of his hatred. His little sister was eaten by a monster right in front of his eyes. Fueled by this memory, he screams that no matter how dangerous the monster is, he'll kill every one of them. As his vow of vengeance echoes through the church, golden wisps of light begin to swirl around him. The liquid in the chalice turns a brilliant gold. The priest informs him that his noble wish has reached God, but as a consequence, he will never be able to run away again. The priest offers God's blessing, and the boy eagerly drinks from the golden chalice. An amazing power surges through his body, overflowing from him in a brilliant golden aura. Leica and the other orphans watch in astonishment at the display of power. Inspired, another boy steps forward, vowing to be a wanderer with no family once he leaves, precisely because everyone in the facility is like his family. His vow is also accepted, and he is surrounded by a golden aura. Another orphan follows suit, eagerly making their own vow, hoping for the same result. One after another, the orphans make their vows and are blessed with golden light, their faces filled with joy and hope. Leica watches, his own hope building. He clenches his fist, his heart pounding with anticipation. He tells himself, "I'll become one too, definitely." Finally, the priest calls for the next person to step forward. It's Leica's turn. With a determined look, Leica approaches the altar, his heart thumping in his chest as he stands before the sacred chalice. He declares his vow, "I vow I will become a knight and, in order to protect people." But as he says the words, he hesitates. To protect people, he thinks to himself, suddenly unsure. His mind goes blank, he can't think of anything. He panics, wondering what he can possibly offer as his vow. He realizes his true desire isn't to be a noble protector. He just wants to leave this place and be happy. But that selfish wish feels unworthy. He looks at the other orphans, who made such noble vows of vengeance and protection. Compared to them, he feels he has nothing to offer. His desperation peaks. "I have nothing. I never had anything." In his panic, an overwhelming force seems to compel him. A voice in his head screams at him to just offer something, anything important from within him. He feels something being forcibly pulled from his body, a strange and unsettling sensation. The offering shoots from him and into the chalice, causing a strange reaction that startles him. The other orphans watch, confused and shocked by the unexpected turn of events. Instead of turning gold, the liquid in the chalice bubbles and transforms into a thick, ominous purple sludge. A wave of murmuring and fear spreads through the onlookers. This is not the result anyone expected. The priest stares at the chalice in horror. "What is this?" he exclaims. "I've never seen such an ominous color." In a fit of panic and fear, the priest declares the ceremony over and orders everyone to disperse immediately. Leica, his only hope slipping away, desperately calls out, "Please wait, my ceremony isn't over yet." But before he can protest further, he's run through from behind by a blade of golden light. He coughs in agony, his eyes wide with shock and pain from the sudden, brutal attack. He stumbles forward, bleeding profusely, as the priest looks on in horror. It was Orphan Bully A who attacked him. He turns to the priest and says, "Priest, that sacred chalice, as I thought. You're a monster after all." The accusation hangs in the air as Leica clutches his wound. Laika looks back in terror and confusion, his mind reeling. What are you? The newly empowered orphans surround Laika, ordering the priest not to protect the monster disguised as a human. They get ready to attack. Orphan Bully A leads the charge, his fist glowing with golden energy, as Laika weakly tells them to stop. The priest panics, yelling that the divine power they received isn't meant to be used on other humans. As Laika's blood from his wound drips down, it falls into the corrupted chalice. The purple sludge reacts violently to the blood, glowing with an intense red and purple light and starting to overflow. Simultaneously, Laika's birthmark begins to glow as an immense power awakens within him. A massive, uncontrolled burst of purple and black energy erupts from Laika, shattering the church floor around him. Laika looks at his own hands in shock, terrified by the destructive power he just unleashed. Is all he can manage. Meanwhile, the liquid from the chalice erupts, forming a monstrous, grotesque shape that towers over the altar. The priest screams in absolute terror. The chalice has given birth to a demon. The tentacle demon, now fully formed, lets out a horrifying scream, its claws dripping with blood as it surveys the chaos. Panicked, the priest orders everyone to evacuate and to call the divine knights for help. But it's too late. The tentacle demon's shadow falls over him. The demon strikes with lightning speed, impaling the priest and silencing his screams. Laika, still reeling from his wound and his own power surge, watches the horrifying scene unfold. He looks at the rampaging creature, his mind struggling to comprehend. Is this a demon? It's a monster. Orphan Bully A is frozen in place, unable to move. He questions why he can't flee from the monster. The priest's words from the ceremony echo in his mind, reminding him of the price of his vow. You will never be able to run away again. Trapped by his own oath, the bully stares in terror as the demon looms over him. As the bully cries for help, Laika can only watch in horror, his body trembling. Another orphan rallies the others, shouting that they have to fight, that this is the very reason they received their power. Filled with a renewed sense of purpose, the orphans charge the tentacle demon, their bodies glowing with golden power. Laika watches the unfolding carnage, his mind numb with shock. What the hell is this? But their newfound power is useless. The demon effortlessly grabs one of the charging boys, his golden aura extinguished in an instant. The demon skewers the others with its sharp limbs, their bodies falling limp as blood splatters across the floor. The tentacle demon turns its attention to Laika, its red eyes glowing with malice as it prepares to strike. The demon opens its horrifying maw, revealing a long, grotesque tongue that splits into two fanged heads, ready to devour him. As the demon lunges, Laika is frozen in terror. He thinks to himself, death, am I going to die in a place like this? His eyes dart to the side and land on the sacred chalice, still sitting on the altar amidst the chaos. The sacred chalice, its remaining contents still glow with that ominous purple light. A desperate idea begins to form in his mind. Looking back at the approaching monster, then at the chalice, Laika makes a decision born of sheer desperation. With newfound resolve, he grabs the chalice. It's fine, he tells himself, his face a mask of grim determination. I'd rather take anything than die here. With that thought, he brings the corrupted chalice to his lips and drinks the remaining liquid. A powerful, corrupting energy surges through his body, causing an intense and painful reaction. Just as the demon's tongue is about to strike, Laika, now empowered, catches it with his bare hand. He channels the forbidden power he just consumed, sending a massive surge of purple-black lightning through the demon's tongue. The energy travels up the demon's body, causing its head to explode from the inside in a flash of dark light. Laika stands amidst the rubble, surrounded by a raging aura of forbidden power, having done the unthinkable to survive. Continuing from the last chapter, a mysterious power surges through Laika. His eyes glow with a menacing pink flame as the forbidden energy begins to take over. His hand becomes enveloped in the strange, crackling power. Deep within his consciousness, Laika is bewildered, questioning what is happening to him. As the transformation completes, his appearance has drastically changed. He looks at his new form, confused by the strange sensation. His body feels cold, yet it's burning with power. But one thing is undeniable. An immense and overwhelming power is overflowing from deep within him, ready to be unleashed. Just then, the corrupted monster that had cornered him screeches, brandishing its blade-like arm, ready to attack. But Laika is no longer the same. With a burst of speed, he dashes forward, a purple blur moving too fast for the eye to see. He doesn't stop at the first monster. He continues his charge towards a larger, more grotesque creature made of writhing tentacles. The tentacle monster lashes out, but Laika effortlessly weaves through the barrage of attacks, his movements fluid and precise. He closes the distance in an instant, preparing to strike the beast head-on with his newfound, devastating power. As the monster opens its giant maw, Laika leaps into the air, drawing on his forbidden energy to conjure a glowing magic circle. With a furious cry, he unleashes the full force of his power, shouting a single word that seals the monster's fate: explode. The magic circle activates, and a cataclysmic explosion of red and purple energy erupts from Laika's hand, engulfing the demon completely. The sheer force of the blast obliterates the massive creature, leaving nothing but dust and fading energy in its wake. As the dust settles, Laika stands alone. The battle is won, but tears stream down his face, a sign of the overwhelming emotional and physical toll of his transformation. The immense power begins to recede. The dark aura is replaced by a gentle, white light as Laika's body starts to revert to its original form. Suspended in the air for a moment, he lets out a faint sigh of exhaustion as the transformation fully reverses. Now back to his familiar white-haired self, Laika collapses to the ground, weak and disoriented. From a distance, a figure who had been hiding watches in shock. It's the bully from the orphanage. His face is pale with terror, unable to comprehend the monstrous power Laika just displayed. He can't believe what he's just seen. Laika stares at his arm in shock. The arm that had been previously severed is now completely restored, without a single scratch. He has no idea how this is possible. A word echoes in his mind, giving a name to this miraculous healing: purification. Laika looks up, stunned by this new revelation. Suddenly, a colossal sword crashes down from the heavens, pinning the corpse of the first demon to the ground with immense force. Laika can only look on in awe. The sword is ornate and powerful, clearly the weapon of a formidable warrior. It stands as a silent testament to the power of its owner. The wielder of the sword approaches, their heavy footsteps echoing in the silence. They remark that the demon's corpse must be dealt with before it spreads its corrupting miasma. Appearing atop the sword's hilt is a woman with fiery red hair, her authoritative presence unmistakable. She gracefully surveys the scene, apologizing for her late arrival. Her sharp gaze lands on Laika as she asks if he was the one who defeated the demon. Stunned, Laika looks up, his eyes wide with disbelief as he recognizes the legendary uniform in the presence of the Divine Knights. With a confident smile, the red-haired woman looks down at Laika and commends him, impressed by what he has accomplished. She acknowledges that defeating a demon of that size all by himself is a truly remarkable feat. This is the commander of the legendary Divine Knights, Arthur. Her powerful presence commands the entire area. Laika is speechless. Staring at the massive magic sword, he can't comprehend the scale of what he's witnessing. This, he thinks to himself, is the true power of a knight. Just then, other knights arrive on the scene. One of them, a muscular man with blue hair named Kieran, calls out to his commander. Kieran playfully complains to Commander Arthur, telling her not to leave the rest of them behind next time. Arthur coolly replies that they were simply too slow, as Laika watches the legendary knights interact right in front of him. A desperate hope ignites within Laika. He realizes that this person, the commander of the Divine Knights, could be his way out. If she acknowledges him, his life could change forever. This is his chance, his one opportunity to finally escape the torment of the orphanage and the constant accusations of being a monster. Filled with a surge of desperate resolve, Laika begins to run towards Commander Arthur, but he is stopped in his tracks, unsure of what to say. Stammering, he blurts out his heart's deepest desire. He's always wanted to be a knight. He shouts that he has always admired them, and with all the courage he can muster, he begs her to let him join the Divine Knights. But before the commander can respond, a familiar, hateful voice cuts through the air. It's the orphanage bully, pointing a finger at Laika and screaming for the knights to kill the monster. Laika is frozen in shock. The knights look on as the bully continues his tirade. Kieran remarks that this is a rather dangerous way to speak to a friend who just saved his life. The bully reveals Laika's hidden past, shouting that Laika is the sole survivor of a village that was mysteriously wiped out. The revelation catches the knight's attention. He continues, explaining that Laika can transform and use incredible power without a sacred vow, the very foundation of a divine knight's strength. The bully delivers his final, damning accusation. There is no way Laika can be human. Laika, horrified, can only stammer that it's not true. Commander Arthur has heard enough. With a casual, almost bored expression, she raises her hand towards the screaming bully. With a simple flick of her fingers, she sends the bully flying backward, silencing him instantly. The bully is sent tumbling through the air, completely powerless against the commander's overwhelming strength. Looking down at the bully, Commander Arthur states coldly that Laika saved his life, and she does not appreciate that kind of talk. The bully, now a bloody mess on the ground, can only cry and beg for forgiveness, his arrogance completely shattered. Laika is left utterly speechless, stunned by the commander's swift and decisive action. Ignoring the whimpering bully, Arthur turns her sharp, unbroken gaze back to Laika. She gets straight to the point, demanding to know what he meant about Laika not having made a vow. Cornered and completely flustered, Laika scrambles for an explanation. He desperately tries to construct a believable story, stammering that he was right in the middle of his vow when the demon suddenly appeared. Continuing his desperate lie, Laika claims that he gained the power to fight by drinking from a sacred chalice, believing this must be the source of a knight's power. Commander Arthur is not convinced. She states coolly that without saying a vow, one should never be able to obtain the power of a knight. Her gaze intensifies as she corners the terrified Laika with the real question: what on earth did you offer? And with whom did you make a vow? The question hangs in the air, piercing through Laika's frantic lies. Trapped by her piercing stare, Laika can only stammer the truth. He didn't make a vow. He has no explanation. Arthur falls silent for a moment, her expression unreadable. She then admits that his mysterious nature has piqued her interest. Intrigued, she makes a demand. Boy, could you show me that power of yours? Laika is stunned, not knowing how to respond. She insists it will be quicker if she sees it with her own eyes. Laika is caught completely off guard. Panic floods Laika's mind. He has no idea how to activate the power consciously. It had only ever emerged on its own in moments of crisis. He awkwardly tries to explain that he can't just turn it on, much to the commander's visible lack of amusement. Growing impatient, Commander Arthur decides to force the issue. Let's make this quick, she says with an ominous tone. Before Laika can even process what's happening, Arthur grabs him by the scruff of his collar. He lets out a confused as the commander prepares to make her move. With a powerful heave, she throws him directly upwards, launching him high into the sky. Laika tumbles helplessly through the air, screaming in terror and confusion at the sudden, violent launch. From the ground below, Arthur yells up at him, her voice echoing, "Now show me your power." She adds with a cheerful, yet terrifying smile, "Or else you'll fall and not be saved." It's a brutal life-or-death test. Watching his commander's ruthless methods, a horrified Kieran can only mutter under his breath, "You demon." Laika screams as he plummets from the sky, unable to comprehend the commander's cruel and insane test. Falling through the clouds, his terror mounts as the ground gets closer and closer. The grim reality sets in. If he can't summon that thing, his forbidden power, he is going to hit the ground and die. Just as his situation seems hopeless, a new threat appears. A colossal, whale-like creature of the sky emerges from the clouds, heading straight for him. Down below, Arthur casually identifies the monster as a sky-eater bird, noting they are in its habitat. Kieran panics, shouting that this is no time to be calm, as being eaten by that creature means certain death. But it's too late. The sky-eater bird opens its massive jaws and swallows Laika whole. Arthur and Kieran can only watch. Unable to stand by and watch Laika die, Kieran prepares to intervene. But just as he's about to leap to the rescue, Arthur stops him with a single, firm command. Wait. Arthur explains her cold logic to Kieran. While unexpected, this life-or-death crisis is the perfect chance for them to finally witness Laika's true power firsthand. Appalled by his commander's pragmatism, Kieran can only grit his teeth and repeat his earlier sentiment. She truly is a demon. Meanwhile, Laika finds himself in a horrifying new reality. He's trapped inside the pulsating, fleshy walls of the monster's stomach. To his horror, he sees the skeletal remains of the sky-eater bird's previous victims floating in the bubbling, digestive fluids around him. The thought of ending up like them fills him with a burning rage. He grits his teeth, his hair beginning to glow with pink energy as he refuses to accept such a fate. A horrifying, tongue-like appendage emerges from the stomach wall, looming over him. More of the creature's internal organs writhe around him, preparing to digest their new meal. One of the appendages lunges towards him, intent on finishing him off. As he faces death, his life flashes before his eyes, a life filled with nothing but scorn and ridicule from people like the orphanage bully. He thinks of the misery at the orphanage and the cold, cruel test of the divine knights. He concludes that they are all the worst. But a fire is lit within him. As bad as his life has been, he declares that dying in a disgusting place like this is even worse. This powerful emotion becomes the trigger he needed. With a furious roar, his forbidden flames erupt once more. His body transforms, his hair growing long and black as the raw power overflows. Laika channels the searing pink energy, preparing to blast his way out of the monster's gut. He unleashes a massive, swirling vortex of destructive power, tearing through the fleshy prison from the inside. Back on the ground, Kieran anxiously asks Arthur why she's being so reckless. She calmly replies, "I just want to know." She wants to see if the power that can defeat a massive demon alone will ultimately be for their benefit. Or not. Her question is answered by the pained shriek of the Sky Eater bird as it's violently ripped apart from within. Laika, in his full transformed state, bursts forth from the exploding creature, a silhouette of fury against a backdrop of gore and forbidden flames. Having obliterated his foe, Laika begins his long descent back to the ground, the transformation already starting to fade. The knights below can only watch in awe as he falls, leaving a trail of raw power that carves through the very air. This time, Kieran doesn't hesitate. He leaps forward and catches the now unconscious Laika, asking if he's all right. Laika, back in his normal form, can only manage a weak groan, completely drained from using his power twice in one day. Kieran holds him, relieved, noting that despite the ordeal, Laika appears to be completely unharmed. As Arthur approaches, Kieran looks at the boy in his arms and states that to defeat a creature like that alone, Laika's power is at least on par with that of a vice commander. Arthur reminds Kieran of the past. 15 years ago, he found a baby in a ruined village. He was the only one who opposed getting rid of him. Now, that baby has grown into quite a sight. This is Kieran, the 9th branch commander of the Divine Knights, a man whose fate has been tied to Laika's since the very beginning. Looking down at the boy who has suffered so much, Kieran thinks with a heavy heart that perhaps it would have been better for Laika if he had died all those years ago. Arthur's voice cuts through his thoughts, calling out to the now conscious Laika. Startled, Laika looks toward the commander. With a steady, unwavering gaze, Commander Arthur announces her decision. Laika will be taken in by the Divine Knights. His unknown and immense power must be kept under their watch. She stands before the ruins of the orphanage, her decision made. Laika is shocked, unable to believe what he is hearing. Arthur explains her pragmatic reasoning. Humanity is in a desperate war and is no longer in a position to choose its forces, regardless of how mysterious a person's identity or power might be. The sky itself seems to crack as she delivers her final, chilling line. They have to take any power they can get, because humanity has only a little time left. The story continues under a bright blue sky, where elegant carriages soar through the air, hinting at a journey to a new, grand destination. Inside one of the flying carriages, Laika lies unconscious, the fresh scars on his body a stark reminder of the devastating power he unleashed in the previous chapter. Laika's eyes slowly flutter open as a voice from an unseen person asks, "Are you awake?" He looks up startled to see a woman with striking red hair looking down at him with an enigmatic smile. Flustered, Laika scrambles to sit up, apologizing as he takes in his surroundings. He finds himself in the carriage with the red-haired woman and a stoic, blue-haired man and confusedly asks where he is. Looking out the window, Laika is stunned to see they are being carried through the clouds by a majestic winged horse. The carriage is flying. The red-haired commander explains that they are on a tight schedule and had to depart before he awoke. She apologizes that he couldn't say his goodbyes to everyone at the facility. The words "say goodbye to the facility" echo in Laika's mind. The place he so desperately wanted to escape is now a thing of the past. A hopeful realization dawns on his face. He looks up with wide, eager eyes and asks if this means he is finally, officially a part of the Knight Order. The red-haired commander gives him a warm, reassuring smile. Her heart rate quickens as she confirms with a simple, yes. While Arthur, the blue-haired knight, looks on with a neutral expression, the commander continues, telling Laika that starting today he is under the Knight Order's care. She says this with a charming smile, pointing directly at him as if sealing a pact. Laika's initial excitement fades into confusion. The phrase, "under your care," sounds less like acceptance and more like he's being monitored. Sensing his doubt, the commander gently takes his hand. She explains that his very existence is an irregularity, and whether he can be trusted will be determined by his actions from now on. Laika looks at their joined hands, quietly weighing her words. He thinks to himself that if it means he gets to leave the terrible facility, he's willing to accept the condition. His thoughts then turn back to his former home. He peers out the window and suddenly asks, what happened to the facility? Arthur turns to him and delivers the grave news. The building was badly damaged in the recent incident, the one caused by Laika's own power, and has been officially slated for dismantlement. A bleak image of the ruined facility flashes by, with a child crying over a fallen adult. Arthur continues, explaining that the staff and other children will be split up and sent to live at other facilities. The commander adds a grim detail. It seems most of the children who had just formed their covenants died in the incident. She then asks Laika if there was anyone special he wanted to say a proper goodbye to. The question triggers a flood of painful memories for Laika: a broken pot, being yelled at by the staff, and the feeling of being beaten down. The constant abuse was all he ever knew there. He bluntly replies, no. With his head lowered, he finishes his thought, stating coldly, not really. There was no one at that facility he would miss. As the carriage flies on, Laika asks where they are heading. The commander gestures out the window, telling him they are going to the Night Order's headquarters in the Holy Capital. She points towards the horizon, saying he can almost see it now. She explains that the headquarters is home to many knights and cadets like himself. They are all stationed there because, in this day and age, a calamity from the mythic age could occur at any moment. Laika is taken aback by this revelation, struggling to comprehend the scale of such a threat. He repeats her words in disbelief, from the mythic age. Noticing his confusion, the commander gestures towards the window with a serious expression, urging him to see the truth for himself. Take a look at that, she says. Laika looks out the window, and his eyes widen in shock. He sees a massive, terrifying crack spreading across the sky like shattered glass. The flying carriage they are in is heading directly towards this ominous rift, highlighting the immense danger the world is in. As if reading from an ancient tome, the commander begins to explain the world's history. Long ago, a rift tore open in the sky, and from it poured demonic essence and beasts from another world. She continues the tale, revealing that leading this invasion was the Demon King, a covetous god from the other world who spawned his own avatars, the celestial demons. Through these powerful avatars, the Demon King toyed with the life of this world and defiled the land with vast amounts of corrupting demonic essence. An illustration shows a great battle. The commander explains that the Night Order of that time managed to drive the Demon King back into the rift and seal the celestial demons across the continent. But this great war is the reason humanity's lands have shrunk to their current size. The history book slams shut, bringing the story of the past to a dramatic close. Back in the present, the commander looks at Laika and Arthur, admitting that even today, they still don't know for certain where the mysterious crack in the sky leads. Her expression becomes deadly serious as she delivers the most chilling piece of information. What they do know is that the rift is slowly growing larger. An inspiring image of knights standing strong appears. The commander declares with unwavering conviction that the only ones who can defend the world against this growing threat are them, the Night Order. The weight of this new reality crashes down on Laika. He clutches his chest, overwhelmed and gasping as he comprehends the scale of the conflict he's been thrust into. The commander observes his shocked reaction, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips. Laika's response is exactly what she expected. She leans in, startling him out of his trance. To be honest, she begins, her voice dropping to a more personal tone, I have high hopes for that power of yours. For the first time, someone is expressing faith in him. Laika is completely flustered, a blush rising to his cheeks as he stammers, high hopes, for me. The commander moves even closer, her gaze intense as she lifts his chin. From you, she says, her voice resonating with power, I feel something powerful. Laika, completely captivated and intimidated, catches a glimpse of Arthur watching them, which only adds to his confusion. She begins to list his unique abilities, her words weaving a spell around him. The light in your eyes when you transform. The sword of flame and the explosive fire attacks, she continues, gripping his regenerated arm, and the regeneration of your left arm, which should have been severed. Her face is inches from his as she confesses, I have never encountered a power that piques my interest so much. Laika is so mesmerized he can't even swallow. The commander acknowledges that she doesn't know what he offered for his covenant, but she pauses for a moment, letting her words hang in the air, for now that power. Her eyes gleam with purpose as she makes her demand, I want you to use it alongside us, for the sake of the people. Filled with a renewed sense of hope and purpose, Laika looks at her with determination. To be needed to have his power used for good, it's everything he's ever wanted. Why yes, gladly, he agrees without hesitation. A cunning, satisfied smile spreads across the commander's face. Her gamble on the boy is paying off. Then I have a job for you right away, she says cheerfully. Without another word, she shoves him out of the flying carriage, sending a shocked Laika plummeting towards the earth below. Panic sets in as Laika screams, tumbling helplessly through the open air after being shoved from the carriage. He hits the ground with the force of a meteor, crashing into the forest floor and creating a massive impact crater. He pushes himself up, expecting to feel broken bones and searing pain, but instead, his eyes widen in utter disbelief. He looks at his own hands and body, completely unharmed. The lack of pain is so profound it feels alien, as if his body is no longer his own. Looking up at the flying carriages, Laika recalls the lore. Those who form a covenant gain 2 powers. One is special abilities called divine arts, and the other is protection, a physical characteristic that surpasses ordinary limits. He just experienced its power firsthand. He then remembers the commander's cryptic parting words from the carriage. She said the Night Order's work isn't just slaying monsters, and that his first job was to clean up the trash down here. As the carriages disappear into the distance, the commander's voice echoes, instructing him to go to the city when he's done. Laika stands up, confused, pondering the meaning of her words, cleaning up trash. Suddenly, the sound of rustling leaves and snapping twigs catches his attention. He hears footsteps approaching. A group of burly, dangerous-looking men emerge from the woods. They were hiding, waiting for the Night Order's carriages to leave, and now that the coast is clear, they can get back to business. The brutish leader of the group, a man with a thick beard and a cruel face, spots Laika. "Huh, who's this brat?" he grunts, sizing him up. The bandits surround him. "We heard a hell of a noise," one of them says, gesturing towards the crater Laika made. "Was that your doing?" Laika stays silent, his mind racing as he tries to understand who these menacing figures are and what they want. The bandit boss smirks, speculating aloud that a kid alone in the forest must be an abandoned child or an orphan whose parents were killed by fiends. His cruel assessment is confirmed when another bandit adds with a sneer that it doesn't matter who he is, as long as he sells for a good price. The realization hits Laika like a bolt of lightning. These men are bandits, human traffickers. The commander's words finally make sense. His first job, his first act as a knight, is to get rid of this trash. The bandits threaten him to come quietly, but then Laika sees it. Huddled behind them are two small children, their hands bound, their eyes filled with terror. The bandit mocks that he can't say what will happen to Laika wherever he's sold. Seeing the fear on the captive children's faces strikes a deep chord within Laika. It's a mirror of his own past, of the helplessness and torment he endured for years. A tear of empathetic rage streaks down his face. The bandit boss dismissively tells Laika to get over here quietly, but something inside Laika has snapped. In a loud, clear voice filled with newfound conviction, he shouts, "Let those children go, you scumbags." The bandit leader is stunned into silence by this sudden and unexpected act of defiance. Laika's eyes begin to glow with a familiar, dangerous light. He embraces his new role completely. "This is the first job the commander gave me. As a member of the Night Order," he declares, his voice laced with power. "I'll take care of you right quick." In the middle of the woods, a group of bandits happens upon a lone, shirtless boy. Believing him to be an easy target, they wonder about his identity. The boy Laika turns to them with a sharp, determined gaze, unfazed by their numbers. The bandit leader scoffs, deciding it doesn't matter who the boy is. Since he's in their territory, he's fair game. With that, he draws his sword. With the order to attack, the group of bandits lunges toward Laika all at once. The clash of steel rings out, but Laika, using only his bare hands, skillfully parries their blades. As a bandit swings his sword, he's shocked to find his target has completely vanished. Suddenly, Laika's voice is heard from behind the bandits, calmly reassuring someone that everything is okay now. The bandits look back in terror. They're shocked to see that Laika has instantly moved to the other side of the path, crouching low to the ground. It's revealed that Laika is protecting a group of terrified children. He tells them to stay back as he prepares to face the threat. Laika glares at the bandits, his eyes beginning to glow with an ominous red light. The men are visibly terrified by this sudden change. Confused and unnerved by his incredible speed, the bandits regroup, surrounding Laika and the children he's protecting. One of them takes aim with a wrist-mounted crossbow and fires, but once again, Laika vanishes in an instant, easily dodging the projectile. Panic begins to set in as the bandits frantically search for their elusive target. One of the henchmen spots him further down the path, and they all turn their attention to his new position. The crossbow-wielding bandit prepares for another, more careful shot. With a furious cry, he unleashes a bolt, intending to end Laika's life. But before the bolt can reach him, a massive burst of crimson energy erupts from Laika, instantly vaporizing the projectile. The bandits are left completely stunned, unable to comprehend the immense power they just witnessed. The violent, crackling energy pulses in the air. As the light settles, Laika's form has changed. His hair is now long and dark, his eyes glow red, and a demonic power emanates from him. He declares that he will end this now. With a cold, piercing gaze, he decides to finish the fight quickly. The bandits can only call him a monster, as this new, terrifying version of Laika unleashes a devastating wave of his forbidden flames upon them. His power incinerates everything in its path, leaving the bandits with no chance to escape. In an instant, the battle is over. Transformed Laika stands tall amidst the smoldering remains of his power, a figure of absolute might. But as he surveys the devastation, he doesn't feel a sense of victory. Instead, a strange feeling creeps in. As the chaotic energy crackles around him, like his expression changes to one of concern, he senses that something is deeply wrong, hinting that this immense power comes at a price. Just as Laika processes his transformation, a desperate voice shouts at him not to move. The bandit leader has survived the inferno, and in a cowardly move, has taken one of the young children hostage, holding a knife to her throat. From a distance, the bandit threatens to kill the child if Laika takes even a single step closer. The bandit leader sweats profusely, terrified of Laika's power but clinging to his last hope for survival. In his transformed state, Laika calmly notes that there was one survivor. A tense standoff ensues, with Laika's demonic form on one side and the desperate bandit holding the hostage on the other. The sharp blade presses against the child's skin, drawing a small drop of blood. Laika remains silent, his expression unreadable as he assesses the dangerous situation. His demonic energy subsides slightly as he lowers his hand, seemingly agreeing to the bandit's demand. Laika states that he won't come any closer, and in return, he tells the bandit to release the children. The bandit leader laughs maniacally, refusing the offer. He reveals his cruel intentions, calling the captured child valuable merchandise. He taunts Laika further, explaining that since the children's parents were already killed by demons, he's just making good use of them before they become monster food. As the bandit continues his vile rant, he's suddenly cut off by a searing pain. From a distance, Laika has used his power to forge a blade of pure energy, severing the bandit's arm and freeing the child. The bandit lets out a horrific scream as the divine heat from the attack cauterizes his wound. Through his pain-filled vision, he sees Laika standing motionless in the exact same spot as before. Laika looks up, his eyes glowing, and reminds the bandit of his promise. He said he wouldn't come any closer, but he never said he wouldn't attack. With the final threat neutralized, Laika walks past the fallen bandit. He internally reflects on his newfound power, surprised that he could create something other than just a sword. He remarks to himself that these divine arts are quite handy, then turns to the freed child, asking if she is okay. The child flinches away from him in absolute terror. Laika immediately realizes that his monstrous appearance is frightening the very people he saved. Overwhelmed by fear, the young girl begins to cry uncontrollably. A wave of understanding and perhaps sadness washes over Laika. As he closes his eyes, the demonic flames covering his body begin to fade. He sits down beside the crying girl, gently pulling her into a comforting embrace and telling her that everything is okay now. But the comfort is short-lived. The immense power he unleashed takes its toll, and a sudden wave of dizziness hits him. His vision blurs, and the world around him begins to fade to black. His body gives out, and he collapses onto the forest floor, unconscious. As the children rush to his side, their worried cries are the last sounds heard in the now quiet woods, leaving his fate uncertain. The scene shifts to the grand, sunlit headquarters of the Divine Knights. A man with spiky blue hair and a white cape stands at the city entrance. This is Kieran, the 9th branch commander of the Divine Knights. He spots a group of children struggling to carry someone and notes their arrival. His expression changes to one of alarm as he realizes the situation is unusual, and he quickly calls out to them. The children are trying their best to carry the unconscious Laika, who has now reverted to his normal, white-haired form. A closer look shows Laika is completely drained, drooling slightly in his deep sleep as the children strain to support him. Kieran rushes over to the scene, demanding to know what happened. One of the children explains that this Mr. had told them to come here, but after carrying them all the way to the city, he suddenly collapsed. Kieran sighs in exasperation. He effortlessly lifts Laika onto his shoulder, complaining that causing trouble for the very people you saved is unheard of. Looking at the sleeping boy, Kieran gives him one demerit for his unprofessionalism. With Laika in tow, Kieran heads into the city, pondering what to do about this troublesome rookie. The scene shifts to a grand hall where the commanders of the Divine Knights have gathered to evaluate Laika's actions. Fran, the 2nd branch chief, thinks Laika's sleeping face is adorable and decides to give him a perfect mark. However, her deputy, Kenneth, dryly comments that his boss is a total softie. He thinks Laika looks like an idiot and gives him a failing grade. Grift, the stern 4th branch chief, adjusts his glasses, stating that he finds it utterly preposterous for a knight to exhaust all his strength on a mere cleanup job. Jack, the 6th branch deputy chief, chimes in. He says he heard rumors Laika was a monster, but finds the reality disappointing, deciding to just wait and see what he does next. From her throne, the red-haired commander interrupts, telling her subordinates that they are being too harsh in their evaluation of a rookie on his first errand. With a commanding gaze, she declares her final decision. Laika's observation will continue. The council listens as the commander concludes the meeting, stating that they will need to see more growth from Laika next time. The story continues the next morning, at the grand and majestic headquarters of the Night Order. Inside, a magnificent feast is being prepared, starting with a glistening bowl of fresh fruit. The spread includes all sorts of delicious-looking dishes, from grilled chicken and salmon to rich, warm soup. An incredibly long table is laden with an unbelievable amount of food, a true banquet fit for kings. Faced with this incredible sight, Ryuka, a boy who has known nothing but starvation, can only stare with a blissful, drooling expression. He sits at the head of the massive table, completely overwhelmed by the fact that all of this is for him. Finally believing his good fortune, he tears into the food, stuffing his face with a happiness and hunger he's never been able to satisfy before. He eats so fast that he begins to choke, but a hand quickly appears, offering him a glass of water. It's a kind-faced maid with white hair named Fran, who winks at him reassuringly. She gently tells him to take his time, as no one is going to steal the food from him here. Touched by this simple kindness, a blushing Ryuka looks up and gratefully agrees. As Fran moves on to serve others, the scene is one of peace and normalcy that Ryuka has never experienced. He thinks to himself that here, he can finally eat in peace. The thought brings up a contrasting memory of his past, a broken pot, a symbol of his former miserable life. A painful flashback shows him being beaten, a time when he wouldn't just be bothered, but actively abused and forced to eat garbage. Returning to the present, a warm smile spreads across his face. He's so glad he came to the Night Order, where he even got a new uniform. But his peaceful moment is suddenly interrupted by a voice calling out to him. A stern-looking man with black hair approaches, looking down on him. "You're Ryuka, right?" he asks. With his mouth still full, Ryuka confirms his name as the man walks menacingly toward him. The man gets uncomfortably close, glaring down at Ryuka with a look of disdain. Ryuka, completely baffled by the stranger's attitude, can only mumble, "Huh, what?" The man simply scoffs at him, clearly unimpressed. In his mind, he dismisses Ryuka as an idiot, which provokes a furious and childish reaction from the boy. Turning his back, the man commands Ryuka to follow him, adding a cryptic challenge. "Are you worthless trash, or a useful idiot? I'll find out." Furious at the insults and the sudden order, Ryuka leaps from his seat. "What the hell's your problem?" Popping up out of nowhere, he shouts, demanding to know who this arrogant man is. The man remains turned away, his response delivered with a cold authority that cuts through Ryuka's anger. "I am Kenneth." The name hangs in the air, leaving Ryuka stunned and waiting for an explanation. Kenneth clarifies his position with an air of superiority, stating he is the vice commander of the Night Order's second branch. Ryuka is still processing the title when Kenneth impatiently cuts him off, telling him to just shut up and follow. Kenneth then turns his attention to the maid, Fran. He tells her she's coming too, and condescendingly asks how long she plans on staying in that outfit. Before a surprised Fran can respond, Kenneth reveals her true identity to everyone. "It's time to go, Branch Commander Fran." Ryuka is absolutely stunned by the revelation. As he's trying to get his plate, Fran, now with a commander's demeanor, tells him to please hurry. Still in shock, Ryuka can only mutter, "Branch Commander," as he's left behind in the Grand Hall. Sometime later, the trio walks down a path outside the capital. Fran is now in her proper commander's uniform, leading the way, while Kenneth smirks and Ryuka trails behind them. Ryuka is still completely lost, his mind racing to make sense of the fact that the kind maid was actually a high-ranking officer. Noticing his distress, Fran turns to him with a gentle smile and tells him not to worry. She cheerfully declares that their goal for the day is a simple one, for everyone to return home safe and unhurt. Her warm encouragement seems to calm Ryuka down a bit, and he numbly agrees. As Fran hums and walks ahead, Ryuka can't help but recall her earlier image as a gentle maid, finding it hard to reconcile the two identities. He mutters to himself that he can't believe she's so important, as she doesn't look it. Kenneth interrupts his thoughts, informing the commander that they're almost at their destination. Fran turns back to them with a chipper expression, announcing that she'll quickly go over the mission details once more. She explains that a monster sighting was reported on the outskirts of the royal capital. Though the damage is minor, it requires a quick response, which is why a branch commander and vice commander were dispatched. Her gaze then shifts to Ryuka, and she adds that since they have the chance, they're going to use this mission to see what he can do. Her tone becomes serious as she reveals the full truth, Since Ryuka is now under the Night Order's care, she and the other commanders have been debating what to do with him. This mission is, in essence, an evaluation. The word evaluation hits Ryuka like a ton of bricks. He stares in horror, realizing the true weight of this outing. The fear of losing the new life he just found sends him into a spiral of panic. He clutches his head, thinking, no, anything but that. Just as his panic peaks, a comforting hand gently pats his head. It's Fran, who offers him a reassuring smile, telling him that she actually has very high hopes for him. She adds that she's heard plenty about his impressive skills from the commander. Her praise catches him off guard, and the words high hopes echo in his mind, extinguishing his fear. Fran's encouragement works a little too well, instantly flipping Ryuka's mood from despair to overconfidence. He puffs out his chest and boasts that if the opponents are just monsters, it'll be easy, and the person he is now could wipe them out in no time. However, Kenneth immediately punctures his ego with a cutting remark, bold words for someone who had to be carried home by the kid he saved. Ryuka is left stammering, shocked that Kenneth knows about that embarrassing moment. Kenneth continues his verbal assault, coldly stating that if either he or the branch commander deems Ryuka to be useless, he will be expelled from the Night Order immediately. He adds another jab, saying that judging by Ryuka's idiot face, expulsion is the most likely outcome. This final insult makes something in Ryuka snap, and he lets out a scream of pure rage. He furiously confronts Kenneth, yelling about what makes him so mighty. He points out they're probably the same age, yet Kenneth acts completely superior. Kenneth simply retorts, "Are you really asking?" Just as the argument is about to escalate into a physical fight, Fran jumps between them, trying her best to play peacemaker. She apologizes for Kenneth's attitude, explaining that because of his covenant, he can't help but be brutally honest. She asks Ryuka if he can forgive him. Ryuka seems to accept the explanation at first, hearing the word covenant, but then the true meaning of brutally honest sinks in. He realizes this means Kenneth wasn't just being mean for the sake of it. He erupts again, getting right in Kenneth's face and screaming, "So you really deep down think I look like an idiot?" Kenneth bluntly confirms it, while Fran sighs at their antics. After things calm down slightly, Kenneth continues the conversation on a more serious note. He asks Ryuka a direct question that cuts through the tension. "You haven't made a covenant, right?" Ryuka looks away, answering defiantly, "So what if I haven't?" Kenneth explains the fundamental principle of their power system. A covenant is the heart and price one offers for power. The greater the sacrifice, the greater the power. Ryuka tries to act tough, claiming he already knew that, but his panicked eyes betray his ignorance. In a flash, Kenneth moves, pressing the cold barrel of his divine arts tool, a gun, directly against Ryuka's forehead. The sudden, dangerous escalation shocks Ryuka into silence. With the weapon held steady, Kenneth begins to lecture Ryuka on the harsh realities of the life he wants to join. He reveals a grim statistic. Within the Night Order, a third of all recruits die within 6 months, killed by monsters or their own broken covenants. Ryuka stares in horror at this revelation. The speed and lethality of Kenneth's movement finally register, and Ryuka wonders when he even drew his weapon. He begins to understand that the Night Order is not the safe haven he imagined, but a place of immense danger. Kenneth presses the gun harder, his eyes glinting as he asks Ryuka if he really plans to step into such a world without the resolve to sacrifice anything. The weapon begins to glow with power, the pressure mounting on Ryuka, who can only sweat and stare in fear. Fran finally steps in, pushing Kenneth's arm down and shouting his name, but as she does, Ryuka finds his voice. Both Fran and Kenneth are surprised as Ryuka begins to speak, his voice trembling but firm. He admits it's true he hasn't properly made a covenant yet. As he speaks, an intense pink and purple aura erupts from his body, declaring that he will do whatever it takes to stay. He explains that it was the commander who took him in, giving him a reason to fight for his place. He shouts that he was given good food and a soft bed, a chance to escape a hellish facility. The mention of that specific phrase makes Kenneth freeze in shock. Fueled by desperation, Ryuka proclaims he doesn't care about covenants or any of that. His aura burns even brighter as he makes his vow clear. He will do whatever it takes to join the Night Order. With eyes glowing with pure determination, he declares that he will cling to this new life with everything he has. Kenneth stares in disbelief, not just at Ryuka, but at his own divine arts tool, which is reacting violently to Ryuka's power. As his gun glows with a strange green light, Kenneth recoils in agony, seemingly tormented by a memory or voice from his past screaming at him to stop. Sensing the situation is getting out of hand, Fran steps directly between the clashing auras of the two boys, taking command. She gives them both a cheeky wink, praising their energy and motivation, and effortlessly diffusing the intense standoff. Then her demeanor shifts. She summons her own massive weapon, a giant fork, and unleashes her power, declaring that from this point on, it's her turn to take the lead. The three knights stand ready, each enveloped in their own distinct, powerful aura. Kenneth's green, Ryuka's pink, and Fran's radiating from the center. Both Ryuka and Kenneth are left completely stunned, silenced by their commander's overwhelming display of authority and power. Fran smiles, telling them to channel that energy into their work. As she speaks, a horde of monstrous, shadowy beasts with glowing red eyes emerges from the dark forest, and the real test begins. From the shadows of the forest, a group of ape-like monsters observes the divine knights. In the center, Laika, Kenna, and a female knight stand ready, their mission about to begin. Suddenly, Laika appears, his white hair standing out in the dim light of the forest. The battle erupts. Kenna, the vice commander, unleashes a swift attack, but the ape-like monsters are numerous and agile, immediately swarming the knights. One of the monsters whips its long, pink tail in a flash. The attack narrowly misses Laika, who looks on in shock at the creature. Whoa, that was close, he thinks, realizing the danger. Laika's face is pale with shock as he comprehends the speed of the monster's assault. The monster's tail strikes a nearby tree, and the wood instantly begins to sizzle and melt under the effect of a powerful poison. The ape-like creature stands menacingly, its tail dripping with a deadly, corrosive venom. The party looks on in horror at the melting tree. Kenna quickly warns the others, don't touch its tail, those spines, the poison is fast and deadly. Before they can react, a horde of the creatures descends from the trees, swarming Laika from all sides. Overwhelmed, Laika finds himself caught by one of the monster's tails. Hey, he yells in frustration. He is tossed around helplessly, crying out that this kind of tactic is cheating. Just as things look dire, a cheerful maid-like divine knight appears with a bright, reassuring smile. With a playful wave, she abandons them, saying, well then, I'll leave the rest to you. Laika can only stare in disbelief. As she departs, she effortlessly strikes down a monster, musing that with so many around, a fiend must be commanding them. She announces she's going to scout ahead, leaving Kenna and Laika to deal with the horde. Hold on, Kenna calls out, but it's too late. Left with no choice, Kenna gets serious. A green aura surrounds him as he draws his twin divine arts pistols. With a cold, determined expression, Kenna takes aim. Just as a monster is about to finish off the fallen Laika, Kenna intervenes, shooting the creature with perfect precision. From above, Kenna looks down at the monster he just dispatched and the knight he just saved. He looks at Laika with disdain. If you think joining the Knight Order is a picnic, then sit down and watch. You're just in the way. Kenna's harsh words hit Laika hard, leaving him stunned and speechless on the ground. As another monster lunges at him, the word picnic echoes in Laika's mind, stinging his pride. A fire ignites within him. Listen, he roars, channeling a surge of power to push back against the attacking monster with newfound strength. Kenna's taunt pushes him over the edge. With tears of fury and determination streaming down his face, Laika screams his ultimate goal, I have to join the Knight Order. But Kenneth is unmoved by the passionate declaration. Holding his divine arts pistol, he coolly replies, words are cheap. As Laika channels his fiery resolve, Kenneth continues his challenge from a distance, if you're serious about it. The vice commander's cold gaze meets Laika's burning determination. Prove it to me first, he demands. The battle reignites. Both knights leap into the fray, Laika with his blazing sword of forbidden flames and Kenneth with his precise pistol shots. Kenneth moves with deadly efficiency, twisting through the air and dispatching monsters with perfectly aimed shots, ejecting spent mana cartridges as he goes. Laika, fueled by pure determination, wildly swings his blade, unleashing bursts of raw, explosive energy. He brings his flame-wreathed sword down hard, striking a monster with brutal force. With a ferocious roar, Laika pours all his anger and frustration into a powerful, cleaving strike. He stands panting amidst the bodies of the monsters he just defeated, his own attack leaving him winded. Meanwhile, Kenneth dances through the chaos, his movements a blur of green energy as he effortlessly cuts down monster after monster. In a stunning display of skill, the vice commander stands triumphantly over a mountain of defeated foes, a testament to his overwhelming superiority. Laika watches in frustration. Damn it, he thinks, he really is the vice commander. Him with a gun, me with a sword. Our kill rates aren't even close. Facing yet another pair of monsters, Laika feels his energy begin to wane. He pushes himself to keep fighting, swinging his sword and unleashing more of his forbidden flames. With a desperate battle cry, he forces himself to keep going, pushing past his limits. Laika realizes the flaw in his power. Making the flames bigger only drains him faster. Memories of children calling for their big brother flash in his mind, but he knows at this rate, he'll burn out in no time. Just then Kenneth's voice cuts through his thoughts, dripping with scorn. "That all you've got?" Laika looks up, his exhaustion and shock plain on his face. Standing atop the pile of monster corpses, Kenneth taunts the exhausted Laika. "If you're gonna rest instead of spacing out, at least find some shade." He casually reloads his pistol, showing no signs of fatigue. The taunt hits its mark. Laika grits his teeth, his face contorted in a mask of pure rage. Laika watches Kenneth, his mind reeling. He hasn't stopped attacking once, but he's not even winded. What's the gap between us? Laika runs up to him, demanding an answer. "Hey, how can you keep firing like that? Don't you run out of ammo?" Kenneth explains. "My divine arts tool makes a bullet each time by feeding in mana." A memory surfaces of the Maid Knight, Fran, explaining to Laika, "Sorry, Laika. Because of his covenant, Kenneth literally can't lie. He's forced to accept the unbelievable truth." The staggering difference in their methods becomes clear to Laika. While Kenneth uses his divine arts to form precise, mana-efficient bullets, Laika's own power is a continuous hemorrhaging flow of raw energy, powerful but unsustainable. A grim understanding settles on his face as he accepts this harsh reality. He can't match the vice commander's efficiency. So, that's how it is, he thinks, his mind already turning towards a new, desperate strategy. He knows the vast difference in their efficiency, but even knowing that, he can't just create a gun out of thin air. He realizes that if he keeps dragging the fight out, the result is obvious. He'll be defeated. In that case, he decides, resolving to take a different path. Kenneth watches from a distance as Laika begins to gather an immense amount of energy, his body glowing with a vibrant pink aura. Seeing the massive buildup of uncontrolled energy, Kenneth scoffs, completely misreading the situation. HMPH, giving up. As he continues to effortlessly dispatch monsters, he internally dismisses Laika. Can't adjust, can't think of another plan, he doesn't belong here. Cutting a path through the monsters, Kenneth plans his next move. "I'll report to the branch commander when she's back." Suddenly, an enormous pillar of pink and yellow flame erupts from Laika's location, soaring into the sky. Kenneth's smug confidence shatters instantly, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated shock. Wah. Standing in the eye of his own fiery hurricane, Laika makes his declaration. "Tricks were never my thing anyway." He makes a reckless choice. "Then forget efficiency, forget mana cost. I'll just go all out," he screams, throwing his hands to the sky. The sheer pressure of the energy buildup terrifies the remaining monsters, who can only shriek in fear. Realizing the danger, Kenneth clicks his tongue in annoyance and leaps away, trying to get clear of the massive blast radius. With a final, desperate roar, Laika unleashes the full, unrestrained power of his forbidden flames. A colossal beam of destructive energy descends from the heavens, engulfing the entire battlefield in a blinding flash. Even at a distance, Kenneth is thrown back by the sheer force of the explosion. Suspended in midair, he can only watch in disbelief. MPH, that's reckless. The attack leaves a massive, smoking crater in the heart of the forest, completely wiping the area clean of all life. Laika collapses onto the scorched earth, his energy completely spent and his shirt disintegrated by the blast. "Duh, I'm spent. I can't even lift a finger." As Kenneth lands nearby, Laika, with his last bit of strength, desperately seeks the vice commander's approval. "How's that? Did you see? I wiped out way more than you in one blast." He lies amidst the carnage, his voice filled with a desperate plea for validation. "Now you have to recognize me." But Kenneth isn't looking at him. His gaze is fixed on something else in the crater, a look of confusion on his face. "What's wrong?" Laika wonders. Kenneth's eyes narrow, sensing that something is terribly wrong. What is it? He notices it. From the bisected corpses of the slain monsters, glowing, thread-like strands of energy are emerging and sinking into the ground. The ground where the threads converge begins to twitch ominously. In a flash of horrifying realization, Kenneth understands what's happening. "This is bad, it's a trap," he screams, "Run." But his warning comes too late. The ground violently erupts beneath them, sending both the exhausted Laika and the agile Kenneth flying. From the depths of the crater, a colossal worm-like monster with a horrifying, gaping maw bursts forth, catching the two knights completely by surprise. Their victory has led them into an even deadlier trap. Inside the demon's maw, Laika grits his teeth, his face a mask of fury and desperation as he finds himself trapped. With a surge of adrenaline, Laika shoves his companion out of the way of a sudden, powerful blast from below. Barely managing to save the other knight, Laika holds on, realizing with horror that they are standing on the very demon that attacked them. That was a close call. The demon's giant mouth curls into a terrifying grin, it becomes clear that it had used the other monsters to lure them into this trap. Laika clenches his fist as the last of his energy fades away. Panic sets in as Laika realizes the direness of his situation. He's completely exhausted from the previous battles and has no strength left to fight. Suddenly, a massive, grotesque tongue shoots out from the demon's mouth. The tongue swiftly wraps around both Laika and the other knight, trapping them completely. Caught in the demon's grasp, Laika struggles furiously, shouting at the creature to let him go. As they are lifted into the sky, a figure descends from above, silhouetted against the bright sun. A woman with white hair and a maid's outfit, Lady Fran, flies towards them with a confident smile. She looks down at the demon with a look of disdain, chiding it for its improper behavior. Lady Fran brandishes a massive, spoon-shaped spear, readying her attack. With incredible speed and power, she thrusts her glowing weapon downward. Her spear makes impact, piercing straight through its target. The demon's giant tongue is skewered by Lady Fran's powerful attack. The massive demon begins to fall from the sky, unable to hold its victims. As the demon plummets, Lady Fran descends upon another creature that was hidden within it. In a flash, the demon is sliced into pieces, and the black-haired knight is sent falling. Laika and his companion crash hard onto the ground, still tangled in the remains of the demon's tongue. Lady Fran lands gracefully nearby, her heels stepping firmly on the ground. With a cheerful smile, she congratulates the two boys on their work, then apologizes. She explains that while she had sensed the demon's presence, she hadn't expected it to actually show itself. From their undignified position on the ground, still tangled in the demon's tongue, Laika and the knight stare up at their savior with looks of pure shock. Lady Fran, however, simply offers a cheerful smile. My, she teases, it looks like you two have become fast friends. This observation is met with a shared cry of horrified denial from the two boys. Still tangled in the demon's tongue, Laika and the knight react with annoyance to Lady Fran's teasing. The three of them stand in the desolate landscape, the severed tongue of the massive demon, a grotesque testament to the battle that just occurred. Now freed from the tongue, Laika looks toward Lady Fran, a serious expression on his face as he processes what just happened. He reflects on the overwhelming power she displayed, effortlessly destroying a monster that had pushed him to his absolute limit. Laika concludes that Lady Fran is on a completely different level. As if sensing his stare, she turns her head slightly. Laika and the knight watch as she kneels beside the demon's remains. She explains that she always prays after subjugating a demon because they were once human. She reveals a shocking truth. Humans who are unlucky enough to be exposed to a high concentration of magic energy can transform into monsters like this one. Taking in this grim information, Laika quietly acknowledges that he understands. However, the other knight steps forward, finding the whole situation strange. He voices his concern, stating that he's never heard of a magic energy reservoir in this area, let alone a demon of this strength, appearing so close to the capital city. He concedes that while it's not entirely impossible, the event certainly feels suspicious and out of place. As he contemplates the possibility of a larger conspiracy, a nearby rock trembles and falls into the canyon below. Lady Fran's eyes widen in sudden shock and realization. She senses an immense danger approaching. A look of pure terror on her face, she screams a desperate warning to the others. Run. Laika and the knight are taken aback, confused by her sudden panic. Before they can react, an overwhelming, invisible pressure slams down on the entire area. The immense force paralyzes all three of them. They struggle, but find they are completely unable to move. A sinister voice echoes, expressing disappointment that his better creation was defeated. A dark boot steps into view, cracking the ground. The three knights look up, their faces filled with shock and dread as they sense the newcomer. A mysterious figure in a dark, hooded cloak appears before them, radiating an aura of immense and malevolent power. Lady Fran stares in horror, recognizing the sheer power emanating from the figure. She realizes who he must be. From within the shadows of his hood, the figure's glowing yellow eyes look down on them. He scoffs, upset that they tore his child to pieces. He glances at the demon's bloody remains, declaring that humans, with their deceiving faces, are truly ugly creatures. Enraged by his words, Lady Fran tightens her grip on her weapon. Created, she questions, demanding to know who this mysterious figure is. Unfazed by her defiance, the hooded figure simply raises a single finger, preparing to answer her question with a demonstration of his overwhelming power. Without a word, the hooded figure unleashes a devastating wave of dark energy, blasting all three knights off their feet. Lady Fran screams in agony as the immense power washes over her, leaving her completely helpless on the ground. Laika looks on in utter disbelief. his mind struggling to accept the reality of the situation. He realizes with dawning horror that even someone as overwhelmingly strong as Lady Fran is completely outmatched by this new foe. Refusing to give up, the black-haired knight grits his teeth and aims a pistol at the villain, cursing him defiantly. The villain merely scoffs, calling the knight a naughty child, as he effortlessly disintegrates the weapon and blasts the knight away. Standing over his defeated opponents, the villain announces that he will have to remake them, musing that he might make them stronger. As he speaks, the bloody remains of the demon that Fran defeated begin to twitch and stir. The severed chunks of the creature begin to levitate, drawn together by the villain's dark red energy. Laika can only watch from the ground, horrified, as the grotesque parts begin to coalesce in the air. He lies paralyzed with fear and confusion, trying to make sense of the horrific spectacle unfolding before him. His eyes are wide with terror as he wonders what in the world is going on. A new, monstrous foot slams into the ground, signaling the arrival of another one of the villain's creations. The villain spreads his arms, wondering aloud what will happen with this new variable. A horrifying new monster appears, a creature with an exposed brain and a gaping maw. The new monster immediately targets Lady Fran, its massive hand grabbing her by the chin. It lifts her effortlessly, a tendril extending from its exposed brain and connecting to her head. Lady Fran chokes and struggles, but she is powerless in the creature's grasp as it begins to absorb her. The monster's jaw unhinges, preparing to consume her entirely. Watching this, Laika's mind begins to crack under the sheer horror. He sees Lady Fran, the powerful knight who saved him just moments ago, about to be killed. His mind flashes back to her cheerful words, declaring her goal was to make sure everyone returned home safely. He remembers her kind encouragement and her high hopes for him, and something inside him snaps. With a desperate roar, Laika screams, "Stop!" and an immense column of fiery purple energy erupts from his body. Laika transforms, consumed by his own forbidden flames, his body contorting as he unleashes his true, terrifying power. His face twists into a demonic grin as the forbidden power completely takes over, his humanity seemingly gone. The chapter ends with this terrifying cliffhanger, leaving his fate unknown. Seeing Fran in the clutches of a demon, Laika is overcome with shock and despair. That despair becomes the trigger, awakening a forbidden power within him. A sinister purple flame erupts in his hand. He unleashes this newfound power, a torrent of forbidden energy, aimed to save the one he cares for. The blast of purple flame flies towards the demon, threatening Fran's life. A memory or vision flashes before Laika's eyes, Fran, looking terrified and helpless. Fueled by rage and the forbidden power, Laika's appearance transforms. His hair grows long and dark as he prepares to fight. A close-up shows his face twisted in a cry of pure rage, his power manifesting as a flame over his eye. After the transformation, Laika returns to his normal appearance, but is left weakened and struggling. Suddenly, a mysterious hooded figure with glowing yellow eyes appears before him. Laika collapses to the ground, crushed by an immense pressure. A dark, ominous void appears, and he finds himself unable to move. The mysterious figure lets out a sound of amusement, observing Laika's struggle from the void. He taunts Laika, expressing his surprise that Laika can even attempt to move within his powerful gravity field. As Laika grits his teeth and pushes himself up, the figure notes his interest in something more than just Laika's physical strength. The figure questions the origin of Laika's flame, sensing that it is an otherworldly power. The mysterious figure deems Laika's power interesting and takes a step closer. He reaches out to touch Laika's face, intending to probe the secrets of his power. A close-up of Laika's eye shows the strain he is under as the figure delves into his secrets. The figure laughs, having discovered Laika's secret. He has made a covenant with a god from another world, a fact that makes the figure deeply envious. A vision appears, showing the moment of the pact. The figure is shocked to see what Laika had to offer up to gain such power. The sinister entity from the other world smiles, having accepted Laika's sacrifice. Its glowing eye gleams in the darkness, a symbol of the dangerous pact Laika has made. Back in the present, the hooded figure attacks, but Laika is no longer helpless. Laika glares at his opponent, his eyes glowing with purple energy, and declares that he's been listening to his taunts for long enough. With a final, defiant roar, Laika unleashes all his stored energy, shattering the invisible pressure that had been holding him captive. The sudden explosion of power completely engulfs the hooded figure, who has no time to react to Laika's furious counterattack. The mysterious hooded figure lies defeated on the ground, its body shattered from Laika's powerful blast. Having used up all his energy in that final attack, Laika is sent flying backward from the recoil. He collapses onto the ground, the strain of using the forbidden power proving too much for his body to handle. His companions, who could only watch from the sidelines, are left breathless and in shock from the battle's sudden conclusion. They stare in disbelief at the scene before them. The formidable enemy lies in pieces, and their friend Laika is unconscious on the ground. Still wary, Fran cautiously approaches the remains of the hooded figure, unsure if the threat has truly been eliminated. She strikes the figure's cloak, determined to uncover the identity of the enemy who pushed them so far. Underneath the cloak, she finds not a body, but a figure made of bandages with a strange mask. She realizes with a shock that it's a puppet. The truth dawns on her. The entire fight, their opponent was never there in person. He was controlling this puppet remotely. Her companion calls out to Laika, but Fran, still processing the revelation, thinks about the implications. She rushes to Laika's side to check on his condition, her initial shock giving way to concern for her friend. Relieved, she discovers that he's all right. He has only fainted from the immense exertion of the battle. As she tends to Laika, her expression hardens as she thinks about the true enemy they just faced. She pieces it together. The man who was controlling the puppet was the same one creating the fiends they had been fighting. The thought is terrifying. For a single human to be capable of such power, to create monsters and control a puppet of that strength, is almost unthinkable. A horrifying possibility enters her mind, a name associated with legends and immense magical power. Could it be the legendary magic master, Ruler Tempest? The scene shifts to a peaceful, idyllic town far from the battlefield. A voice cries out, calling for Ashi. A door bursts open, and a young girl named Ashi storms in, demanding to know if the person she's looking for is sleeping again. She finds the man she's looking for, a figure with long, white hair, lazing on a sofa with a book over his face. The man, Ruler Tempest, groans as he is woken up from his nap. Ashi scolds him for lazing around on such a beautiful day, while he offers a weak apology. He lazily apologizes, explaining to Ashi that he wasn't just sleeping, but was in the middle of a rather interesting dream. With a calm, unsettling smile, Ruler Tempest recalls that dream, his remote battle with Laika. The raw power he witnessed was a thrill, an excitement he can still feel. He tells Ashi that he found something good, and his heart is still pounding from the excitement. She chides him for being a clumsy adult, to which he complains she is being harsh. Too lazy to get up, Tempest casually uses his magic to pour himself a cup of tea, prompting Ashi to once again comment on his laziness. He agrees with her, admiring the beautiful sky and the peaceful day. But in his mind, the peaceful sky is fractured and broken. His thoughts turn to the future and the chaos he plans to unleash. To him, the impending conflict isn't a disaster, but a source of entertainment. He muses that from now on, it looks like something fun is about to happen. Meanwhile, the heroes are far from relaxed. The unnamed knight carries the unconscious Laika, while Fran follows closely behind as they make their way down a forest path. Her companion tries to encourage Laika, telling him to hang in there as they will be reaching the safety of the royal capital soon. But Laika remains unconscious, his face etched with pain and exhaustion from the battle and the terrible power he was forced to use. As the hooded figure's mocking laughter echoes in his mind, a final haunting image appears. A vision of a goblet, filled with the same forbidden purple energy, hangs under Laika's tormented face. The price of his power is a heavy one, and the mystery of what he sacrificed remains. The scene opens on the magnificent Night Order headquarters, bathed in the warm light of the setting sun. Deep within the headquarters, a tense meeting is underway. Laika lies unconscious on a stone table, surrounded by the high-ranking commanders of the Night Order. The central question hangs heavy in the air. Does the fact that this boy has a contract with a god from another world make him a threat? In the stark underground chamber of the Night Order headquarters, the commanders look down upon the unconscious Laika, their expressions a mixture of concern, suspicion, and curiosity. Fourth Branch Commander Grift, a stern man with spectacles and a thick white beard, is the first to voice his concern. He argues that Laika's power, derived from an otherworldly contract, fundamentally goes against the very foundation of the Night Order. However, 6th Branch Vice Commander Jack offers a more pragmatic view. He points out that Laika has also produced a ridiculously huge divine instrument and could be a very useful asset to them. A flash of intense, fiery energy visually represents the immense power that Vice Commander Jack is referring to, the forbidden flames Laika unleashed in the previous battle. 9th Branch Commander Kieran, a muscular warrior with striking blue hair, agrees with Jack. He argues that Laika has already proven himself to be a valuable asset in battle. However, he also believes that taking the word of some unidentified man at face value is absurd. Another commander warns that the report stated the man, the magic master, is a possibility. He believes the risk is far too great, declaring that their organization has no need for uncertain elements. This stern opposition comes from Vice Commander Gavin, a man with long golden hair and a cold demeanor. He states firmly that uncertain elements do nothing but sow chaos. A close-up on Gavin's piercing blue eye reveals his calculating and severe judgment. There is no room for compromise in his gaze. As the debate rages on, the focus shifts to Fran, the red-haired knight who was present during the incident. Fran removes her helmet, her expression serious as she prepares to give her testimony about what truly happened on the battlefield. Commander Grift turns to her directly. "Fran," he says, "I want to hear your opinion as you were there watching." A female knight standing by looks on, with a shocked and worried expression, as the gravity of the situation settles in. Fran begins her account, her voice heavy with the memory. "At the very least," she states, "Kenneth and I were unable to move in that situation. The only one who could stand against that man was him." Her memory flashes back to the scene of devastation, with Laika standing amidst the fallen. She says with certainty, "If he hadn't been there, we would be dead." Fran clenches her fist, her testimony taking a turn. "However," she says, trailing off as a dark memory surfaces. She recalls the terrifying image of Laika consumed by his own chaotic, dark red power, roaring uncontrollably. The image of his crazed, inhuman smile is seared into her mind. If he himself cannot fully control that power, she voices her greatest fear. Looking down, her expression troubled, Fran continues her report to the council. "From what I hear, it seems this kid, every time he uses his power, he becomes completely exhausted and collapses, or so I've heard." Vice Commander Gavin latches onto this information immediately. His sharp eyes narrow as he questions, "Can that truly be called under control?" Fran is left speechless, unable to refute Gavin's pointed question as he looks down on her and the still unconscious Laika. With a heavy heart and a look of resignation, Fran closes her eyes and concedes the point. "I see." Her admission silences the room, shifting the burden of a decision back to the council. The path forward crystallizes from Fran's testimony. The council's objective is now clear. They must determine if Laika can control his power, and by extension, if he is a suitable fit for the Night Order. The fate of the boy on the table hinges on the answer to that single question. The commanders all have varied reactions. While Kieran and the female knight look concerned, Commander Grift appears thoughtful, and Vice Commander Jack seems pleased with the development. Taking the opportunity, Fran addresses the most vocal opponent directly. "Taking that into consideration, Vice Commander Gavin, what would it take to convince you?" Gavin's bloodshot eye narrows as he considers the question, a cold, calculating look on his face. "Let me see," he ponders, clearly formulating a plan. A cruel smile plays on Gavin's lips as he delivers his condition. The trial of the guarded flame. He'll have to pass at least that much. The announcement is met with immediate shock. Both the female knight and Commander Kieran are stunned, exclaiming, "That's..." Their reaction makes it clear that this trial is something extraordinary and dangerous. With the conditions set, a decision is made. "Okay, it's decided," a commander announces before turning to the vice commander. "Jack, I'm counting on you for the healing." Fran smirks, fully aware of the trial's deadliness. "We're sending him to hell," she says to Jack. "Make sure you patch him up good." Meanwhile, Laika remains unconscious, the faint, vein-like scars from his power still visible on his skin as he rests. In the darkness of his mind, a voice echoes, belonging to the entity he faced in battle. "Ahaha, I see, it rasps. You've made a contract with a god from another world." The memory continues, a swirling vortex of red energy. "A god from another world. But, to think you'd offer up something like that," the voice continues, referring to the sacrifice Laika made for his power. The voice turns venomous, full of disgust. "Disgusting, what the hell are you?" Overwhelmed by the memory, Laika screams in his sleep, "Aargh, be quiet." Laika violently jolts awake in bed, shouting as he breaks free from the nightmare. Disoriented, he looks around and finds himself in a bedroom. To his surprise, his fellow knight, Kenneth, is sitting quietly by his bedside, reading a book. "Huh, what the?" Laika mutters. Kenneth looks up from his book, his expression neutral. "So you're finally awake," he says calmly. "You even had healing techniques used on you. Just how long were you planning to sleep?" Kenneth chides, as a view of the headquarters at night shows that a significant amount of time has passed. Ignoring the comment, Laika's first concern is for their safety. "What about that man?" he asks urgently. Kenneth reassures him, "It's okay, the immediate danger has passed." Laika glances over, noticing Kenneth's slightly averted gaze and the faint blush on his cheek, a silent sign of his underlying concern. Laika, sensing his friend's unease, looks at him with genuine curiosity. "What is it?" he asks. Kenneth finally admits his feelings, looking away with embarrassment. "We were saved this time because of you. Thank you. I was worried when you wouldn't wake up." Laika is completely taken aback, rendered speechless by Kenneth's unexpected and heartfelt confession. A playful look crosses Laika's face as he starts to tease his friend. "What, you were worried about me?" Flustered, Kenneth blurts out, "You're the one who saved us. Of course I was worried." Seeing through his friend's flustered denial, Laika smiles warmly. "You really can't lie, can you?" Completely embarrassed, Kenneth turns his head away, muttering, "Well, whatever." But just as their friendly moment concludes, a voice says thanks as heavy footsteps approach the door, signaling an interruption is imminent. The door to the room is suddenly flung open, interrupting the quiet moment between Laika and Kenneth. The imposing figure of Branch Commander Kieran fills the doorway. His expression is stern and serious. Kieran apologizes for bothering Laika during his recovery, but immediately gets to the point. "A decision has been made regarding your future." Laika, still sitting in bed, looks up in confusion. "My future," he repeats. Kieran simply confirms yes. With a grave tone, Kieran makes the official announcement. "It has been decided that you will undergo the trial of the guarded flame." Kenneth reacts instantly, his face a mask of shock and disbelief as he shouts. Laika is still trying to process the commander's words, dumbfounded. "Trial," he mutters. Kenneth completely loses his cool, yelling at the commander. "That's just reckless. This guy just got here as a charge the other day. He's a total rookie." Kieran is unmoved by the outburst. "I am the official administrator of this trial," he states, shutting down any further argument. Kenneth can only stammer, "Wait a minute." Laika, however, sees a glimmer of hope. I don't really get it, but if I pass this trial, does that mean I'll be formally recognized as a member of the Night Order?" Kenneth can only shout idiot at his friend's naivety. Kenneth frantically explains the true stakes. The trial of the guarded flame is a test to become an executive candidate. Normally, you'd need a recommendation from at least 2 or more branch commanders, on top of your work experience and achievements. His eyes wide with panic and sweat beading on his forehead, Kenneth tries to make Laika understand the impossibility of the situation. "And you who have only just been granted the divine magic, this is practically an execution," he screams. Laika stands in stunned silence, the full weight of Kenneth's words finally hitting him. Kieran confirms the grim reality. Just as Kenneth says, "You shouldn't take this so lightly. Of those who take the exam, only a handful pass. Of those who fail, 1/3 go crazy because of how tough it is." He continues his grim warning, "Or else," as the image of a horrifying skeletal monster flashes, representing the ultimate fate of failure, "You'll die." Kieran's gaze is intense and unwavering. "If you don't want to die, challenge it as if you're prepared to die." Kenneth can only look on in despair, whispering Laika's name, hoping he'll refuse the suicidal mission. After a long silence, Laika sits down on the edge of his bed. I don't really get the difficult stuff, but," he begins. A wide, determined smile breaks across his face. "This is the only place I have left now," he declares, his resolve hardening. Against the night sky, with the Night Order's castle in the distance, Laika makes his unwavering promise to himself. "So I'll risk my life and give it everything I've got." 5 days later, the day of the trial arrives. Laika, now dressed in a Night Order uniform, stands with Kieran before the gaping maw of a large cave. Kieran begins to lay out the rules of the ordeal. "The trial imposed upon you consists mainly of 2 parts," he explains, holding up 2 fingers. Looking into the deep, dark cave, Kieran reveals the first task. The first is to survive inside this cave for 3 days. Laika, his expression determined, listens intently and asks the crucial question, "And the second part?" In response to Laika's question, Kieran simply says, "This thing." He presents a simple, unlit candle in a brass holder. Laika looks at it, confused. "A candle. Try pouring your power into it," Kieran instructs. Though puzzled, Laika complies, channeling his glowing pink energy into the object. The candle instantly erupts into a large, roaring flame, catching Laika by surprise. "Whoa, it's hot," he yelps, recoiling from the sudden heat. Kieran then reveals the second, crucial part of the trial. "You must ensure that the candle's flame does not burn out. Protect it for 3 days." Laika's eyes widen in disbelief as he stares at the flame, sweat dripping down his face. "Protect the flame," he echoes, struggling to understand. Kieran then explains the terrible catch. "That flame will attract monsters, you see." The full horror of the trial dawns on Laika. He must not only survive for 3 days, but also protect a burning beacon that will continuously lure enemies to his location. As he turns to leave Laika to his fate, Kieran gives one final, stark order: don't you die. And so, with Laika standing alone at the threshold of the dark forest, holding the monster-tracting flame, the trial of the guarded flame begins. In the pitch-black darkness of the cave, the only sound is the faint drip of a single drop of water, echoing through the silence. A hand appears, holding a single lit candle, its small flame pushing back against the oppressive darkness. The candlelight reveals a vast, blue-tinged cavern. A lone figure, Laika, steps forward, venturing deeper into the unknown. With a determined expression, Laika proceeds, his white hair standing out in the faint, blue glow of the cave. Suddenly, Laika clutches his throat, finding it difficult to breathe. He realizes the air is thick with the magic essence he's heard about. He composes himself, recalling that this cave is known for having an especially thick concentration of magic essence, even for the north. The scene flashes back to Branch Commander Kieran, explaining the situation to Laika. Because of the high magic concentration, the number of monsters here is ridiculously high compared to other places. Kieran holds up 2 fingers, laying out the terms of the trial. You have been given 2 tasks, he states plainly. The first task is one of pure endurance, to survive for 3 days inside this cave, where monsters are more rampant than in any other region. As Kieran's voice continues to explain the second task, a purple, worm-like monster suddenly drops from the ceiling, startling Laika. The monster lands before him as the second objective is made clear. He must ensure the candle's flame is never extinguished, protecting it at all costs. Kieran's warning echoes in his mind. Simply letting an enemy put out the flame is not an option for passing this test. And there's another condition for failure. If the candle itself burns out completely, he will fail. With no time to waste, Laika lunges at the monster. A brilliant flash of light erupts as Laika unleashes a powerful, cross-shaped slash. He follows through with his attack, demonstrating incredible speed and power as he cuts through his target. The monster is instantly defeated, its body sliced into pieces by Laika's precise and devastating strike. But after the attack, a look of shock appears on Laika's face as he notices something unexpected. The flame on his candle suddenly surges, burning much brighter. He understands now. The candle is using his own power as its fuel. Staring at the remains of the monster, Laika quickly realizes he must control his power output, comparing it to narrowing the outlet for water to conserve his energy. He focuses, calming himself down. With a sigh of relief, the flame shrinks back to its normal size as he regains control. Laika's eyes widen in alarm as he recalls the final piece of the instructions. A bell will ring throughout the cave 3 days from now, marking the end of the trial. He has to continue protecting the flame until then. But as he looks ahead, the dark cave begins to fill with the silhouettes of countless monsters. A massive reptilian beast with glowing yellow eyes emerges from the darkness, drooling in anticipation. Laika grits his teeth as Kieran's voice echoes in his head, reminding him of the stakes. If he can do this, he will be formally recognized as a member of the Night Order. But if he cannot, the consequence is death. As this sinks in, Laika stares wide-eyed at the impossible horde of monsters now surrounding him, their grotesque forms filling the cavern. One of the bizarre cave dwellers is a lizard-like creature, with a single large eye and webbed feet, perfectly adapted to this strange, subterranean world. From a distance, the sheer number of monsters becomes clear, as countless creatures swim and crawl through the glowing blue essence that fills the cavern. Meanwhile, far from the cave, 2 figures stand before a large, circular scrying pool, observing the events of the trial from a grand library. It's Branch Commander Kieran and his subordinate. The younger, black-haired knight looks down with a worried expression, unable to watch the scene unfolding in the pool. The subordinate is silent, but his sweating face and concerned eyes betray his thoughts about the impossible situation Laika is in. Looking at the image of Laika surrounded by monsters, the black-haired knight finally speaks his mind, stating that no matter how he looks at it, this trial is too soon for him. Kieran explains that the commander's decision was a political one, meant to appease members of the order who wouldn't be satisfied unless Laika did something this extreme. A vision of the commander appears, a stern, blonde-haired man whose expression shows he is not one to be trifled with. Kieran looks back at his subordinate, a hint of conflict in his expression as he considers the commander's harsh methods. Despite the grim situation, Kieran's expression softens slightly as he says, "But, well." Kieran looks at the scrying pool with a newfound sense of confidence. "I've got a feeling he'll manage somehow," he says, much to the surprise of his subordinate. Back in the cave, Laika is struggling against the tide of monsters, desperately fending them off while protecting the candle. Gritting his teeth, sweat pouring down his face. Laika fights with everything he has, but the situation looks grim. He realizes that if he continues fighting cautiously for 3 days, he'll just be slowly backed into a corner and eventually overwhelmed. In that case, he thinks, a dangerous resolve hardening his expression as his eye begins to glow with a pink, forbidden energy. He makes his choice. With a surge of power, the small flame on his candle erupts into a massive, roaring blaze. Laika deliberately channels his energy into the candle, turning it into a beacon of intense fire that illuminates the entire cavern. The sudden, brilliant light floods the dark passageways, drawing the immediate attention of everything lurking within. A worm-like monster with a circular, tooth-filled maw turns its head, alerted by the sudden flare of power. Another creature with a jaw like a spiked club also senses the immense energy and turns towards its source. All across the cave, monsters of all shapes and sizes stop and turn, drawn like moths to Laika's brilliant, deadly flame. This is his all-or-nothing gambit, to make the candle flame ridiculously huge and draw every last one of the monsters to him. With his eyes glowing intensely with purple energy, Laika grits his teeth and declares his intention to finish them all at once. Heeding the call of the blazing candle, the horde of monsters swarms his position, converging on the lone knight from all directions, unknowingly stepping into his trap. With his enemies gathered, Laika lets out a tremendous roar, finally unleashing all of his pent-up forbidden power in a single, climactic burst. A wave of violent purple energy rips through the monsters, vaporizing them instantly in the massive explosion. The once blue, glowing cavern is transformed into a scorching red inferno, the rock itself melting from the sheer heat of Laika's forbidden flames. A crazed, triumphant grin spreads across Laika's face. He stares ahead, asking the world, "How's this?" Back in the observation room, both Kieran and his subordinate are stunned into silence by the raw display of power. The black-haired knight questions the strategy. Is Laika planning to defeat all the monsters first and then just wait? He wonders what the point of the trial is, if that's the case. In the aftermath, Laika stands panting and shirtless in the smoldering cavern, having burned away his own clothes in the inferno he created. A small, impressed smile appears on Kieran's face as he watches the destruction. He turns to his subordinate and remarks, "Well, if he can pull it off, that's pretty amazing." But suddenly, Kieran's expression changes. His eyes narrow as he notices something in the scrying pool that doesn't belong. "Hey, wait a minute," he says, as the reflection shows a large mechanical leg stepping into the water. He stares at the image of Laika in the destroyed cave, realizing with dawning horror, this is wrong, for that thing to be here. Laika, exhausted and gasping for breath after his massive attack, can't believe what he's seeing. It can't be, he thinks. A vision of the blonde-haired commander appears, a smug and sinister smile on his face, revealing his manipulative intent. The realization hits Kieran. He understands this was a setup. A single, furious thought crosses his mind, that bastard. Laika pants, holding the still-lit candle. The flame is small now, but it's alive. He thinks to himself that he took out a good number of them. Now he just has to make the flame smaller and somehow last for the remaining 3 days. He gets to his feet, ready to find a safe place to hide, but then he sees something emerging from the smoke. Suddenly, a bright red laser beam darts across his vision, targeting him. A blast of energy shoots past his head, forcing him to duck. "Huh," he exclaims, completely caught off guard. His eyes widen in shock and disbelief at the new threat that has just appeared. An enormous mechanical leg slams down in front of him, shaking the very ground he stands on. From the smoke and shadows, a menacing, robotic creature with a single glowing red eye emerges, its gears whirring ominously. The machine Berserach reveals its full form, a mechanical, spider-like knight with multiple limbs, each one brandishing a long, sharp sword. Laika stares at the impossible opponent. "What is that thing?" he stammers as the mechanical assassin poses, ready to strike. Back in the observation room, Kieran slams his hands on the edge of the scrying pool, his face twisted in rage. "There's no mistake," he growls. He recognizes the machine instantly. As its single, red eye glows menacingly, he says its name with dread. That is Berserach. In the cave, Laika is forced to dodge another deadly energy blast. Kieran explains that Berserach is a weapon developed by the Night Order itself. The cruel irony of the situation is laid bare as the chapter ends on a close-up of the robotic assassin. It's an anti-monster subjugation weapon, now turned against one of their own. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and turn on the bell for more awesome stories.